Hello, everybody out there in radio/podcast land. Matt here, going with episode number 9 of the Rub Wrestling Podcast. Getting ready to kick it off. We got a great set of topics tonight. I think it's probably going to be one of our best shows, if I can say so myself. But for everybody out there, for some of the people that have found us, you know how to find us regularly online. I'm a little bit scattered with my words right now, but we'll pick it up. We're just getting started. So you can find us on many different outlets. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Apple. You can find us on Google Play. You can find us on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and follow. Just come and enjoy a solid 45 minutes to an hour of good wrestling banter and rumor mill stuff that's happened throughout the week. So... but without this podcast, we have 2 other people that are on it, our illustrious panel. Chris, how's everything going with you? And basically, pretty busy week in wrestling this week, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty busy week. I missed all 3 of my baseball games on Tuesday and Wednesday. I ate a questionably expired pizza sub, but I thought it was all processed, so it wouldn't really be a problem. Turned out it was a huge problem. My toilet smelled like death for 2 days. So that was, other than that, just work, I guess. We watched a new show called The Bear, which we enjoy.
Ooh, that's the one with the culinary skills in the kitchen, right? The restaurant?
Yeah. So that's been okay. We've binged that a little bit. That's about it. Pretty boring week for me, to be honest.
When you told me that you missed 3 days of baseball, I was actually going to say, did he fall asleep or did he pass out? A la Billy Madison. But, there's more.
Oh, yeah, we're me and Mrs. Sharp are going to go see Barbie tomorrow. So on the next podcast, on episode 10, I guess I will tell you what I think of it.
For Barbie fans out there, congratulations. But for me, I'm just going to wish you my condolences. So kudos to that. Josh, we talked about busy week of wrestling. Chris didn't talk at all about anything during the week of wrestling. But big question for you. Are you ordering Death by Dishonor tonight? For Ring of Honor.
I think I have a desire to watch some wrestling, and I just don't think it's good enough to watch SmackDown tonight. And that card that Ring of Honor is putting on looks pretty good. So I think I'm going to buy it. Was it $30? I think that's well worth the money. It's almost all AEW guys anyway, so I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, it looks like a great card, unreal card with Pac and Claudio Castagnoli headlining for the ROH World Heavyweight Championship. My week was all right, guys. I mean, I had a busy week of work, and I ended up watching this TikTok of this guy who I can't remember his name, but he's a baseball heckler. And he basically heckles everybody in the outfield. I think he cheers for San Francisco, but basically he goes around and he goes, I can't remember. He goes, "Hey, Rondon, you don't even know the proper use of they, there, and there, you bum." And he just goes on. And basically this guy's got 150 videos, I think, that just kind of goes all over these TikToks. But, that's a story for another day. But I highly recommend. Very entertaining. But with that, we're going to talk about something that was extremely entertaining, but it wasn't on Raw, it wasn't on SmackDown, and it wasn't on Dynamite or Collision. Actually, kicked off on NXT, which was the main event between Dominic Mysterio and Wes Lee for the North American Championship and that title. And Dom actually pulled it out, which is kind of crazy. So, Dom... I don't really know what people are thinking when they go through it, but Wes Lee has actually had the championship since probably, I think it was I want to say it was 6 months. I think he had it from October, actually maybe longer than that. I think he had it October 2022 was when he actually won the title. But you're going to look, it's Chris, do you find that the title win for Dom actually happened on NXT and not on Raw and SmackDown? Or do you just find it unexpected for him to win a title right now? Or does the heat that he's been accumulating and everything that's been kind of rolling from WrestleMania really been leading up to this North American title win?
Yeah, I think the heat he's generating, I think he's worked hard. I think he deserves a title. I think NXT, I think the North American title is the best choice for him at this point. You have to reward him, but he's not there yet to put him up in some of those big programs on the main show. So it was a surprise to me, but I'm happy to see it. we have a soft spot for Dom here. Like, so yeah, I think he's worked hard for it. I think he deserved a championship, and I think they're rewarding for his hard work. After the Cody match, what do you really do with Dom? So having him in NXT for a little bit, I think keeps him relevant, at least wrestling, because you can't have him not wrestle. He still seems a little green. So, and maybe they give him the title because he has the heat, and then while he's down there, he can work with Shawn Michaels, he can work with other producers, and up his game in the ring is what I hope happens.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think when you kind of look at his performance over the time for a while, he's just kind of really rolled with the punches, and he's actually one of the top probably 10 people on the show for heat. Actually, probably not even the top 10. I'd probably say top 3 or 5 for what he gets for heat. Sometimes he's not even really allowed to speak when he's going through it. So I think it's a big win for him. I really absolutely love the fact, and I'm going to kind of steal Josh's thunder a little bit, but how they kept the heel aspect for him and how it was like tainted with all the people interfering. And I think it makes him more of a heel, and it's really going to kind of improve. It'll be interesting to see his run as a champion as we go through. Now, Josh, for you in regards to Dom's title win, one of the big things that happens with NXT title wins is that generally the last person that was on the main roster, and I can't remember who it was, but this was mentioned during a show last week, but I can't remember who it was, basically had to drop the title when they went back to Raw or SmackDown. So my question is, does Dom keep the title when he shows up either, tonight or on Monday? And do you think he's going to actually be able to do all 3 shows? Because right now, if the Judgment Day is kind of going in all directions, will he do 2 shows, 3 shows? What are your thoughts on the situation? What's going to happen with booking Dom over the next, let's say month?
Yeah, I think that Dom will continue to be on all 3 shows. Maybe not as much, I think, as the SmackDown's not his home. Is that right? But I think he'll still have a huge presence on Raw because he does get a lot of heat. And because he's Rhea Ripley's Poppy or whatever, she's his mummy, and that's part of their storyline. So it's important that they stay together. I do like the championship win. Just a note, I did do some research, and Wesley was the longest reigning North American champion at 269 days. He actually won it back in October of last year. So he's the longest reigning of that. But yeah, I think that it's going to be interesting. Dominic definitely gets a lot of heat. His in-ring ability is just really lacking for me. And because he doesn't really get to talk, it's not like I'm impressed by his mic skills. I think that a lot of the heat he's getting is just because he portrays that spoiled brat. And it's great. It's great for him, but it's really not letting him develop his on-mic abilities. So that the fans are kind of taking away from that. And the heat's great, but how long can it last? And I'm not sure. Definitely agree with you about enjoying that the fact that they kept the heel aspect with Dom for the win. And even the commentary on some of the news articles that I've been reading about it, they definitely note that he's lacking in the ring. I don't know if he's ever going to be able to improve that. Again, I think he really needs to change his moveset. Maybe he needs to move into more of a strong style, because I really don't think the high flying is his strong point. And I think that if he gets into the hard hitting type of matches, then he might actually be able to develop a style that's better for him.
Yeah, I think a lot of people looked at Eddie Guerrero and said the same thing. Like, he's not really built for it. And then they actually saw him in the ring, and he can move and do all those things. And Dom does not have the same body as Ray. Right, he doesn't. He's taller. He's going to be heavier. But I also think that Dom really hasn't fully kind of filled into his adult body, even for the age that he's at. It's really odd. It's kind of something when it kind of looks like somebody who's kind of slightly underdeveloped, and I think that's part of it, was trying to get him involved in some of these other I don't know, it kind of could have been early. So I mean, a lot of people that have developed, you look at what's his name, Nick Wayne, that was in AEW. He's been wrestling since he's 5 years old. I don't know if Dom's been doing that. Dom played a lot of football, played a lot of different sports, played a lot of things that were coming through. So when that happens, if his focus wasn't completely on wrestling, he's really going to have to develop. But I have to agree with you, Josh. I think he might need a different moveset moving forward. And I think he's probably he's not going to be his dad. He's not going to be Ray. And he's going to have to find his own way sooner or later, right? Before he figures it out. But I'd say right now, for what's going on, I think it's perfect to get him the heat that he needs, but eventually that heat will dissipate, and that's going to be a true test of his capabilities as a professional wrestler. Now,
good for NXT too. Good for NXT to get that heat now. So there's somebody that they're gonna want that the fans are gonna want to tune into or watch just to hate him. So might help the product a little bit, get some more eyes on it.
Yeah, I think there's a couple guys that could be main roster guys, but I don't necessarily know that they're ready. Like we've talked about Braun Breaker before. We look at a guy like Von Wagner, who's really green, just comes from a professional wrestling lineage and can use it, but is still like probably about a year or two away from moving up, and I think they tried to rush him through, and I don't think it was the right move. But there are people on that roster that could move up, and it won't be in a main event capacity, but there are some people that are starting to kind of turn some heads, and that might be a topic for another day, but we'll get to that eventually later on. Number 2, Josh, Factor Fiction. We did Factor Fiction with Chris last week. We're going to talk about Gunther. I keep saying Gunther, but it's Gunther. And the great run that he's been having. When Gunther came over, he started as Walter out on the Indies. He was a big draw over there, especially in Europe, and then came to the States and really had a bunch of like Dave Meltzer 5-star matches. Like there's actually Walter matches in the Indies that have 5-star Meltzer ratings. But when you actually look at it, and kind of what he's taken on with the Intercontinental Championship and how long he's had it and how dominant he's been, where do you actually rank basically his IC title reign over the course of maybe the last 20, 25 years? What are your thoughts on his dominance being in a WWE ring with that title?
Yeah, so I think he came into the main roster at a time where WWE was investing in longevity in their champions, and you can see it because almost all of their champions are longest reigning anything at this point. I think that he definitely deserves it because he brings a type of style to that title that is deserving. He represents it well. He is a very strong heel. He's not terrible on the microphone. He leads a faction that is active in a lot of different feuds. So I really think that his reign is probably in the top 5 for Intercontinental champions. It's hard for me because a lot of the previous Intercontinental champions that I would remember would have been like from the early days, pre Attitude Era, even like when Mr. Perfect would be doing it. So. Or when he would have it. And I think that the Intercontinental Championship is just like, another stepping stone for a wrestler like Gunther. And, he's going to be main event Gunther eventually.
Gunther. See, I got everybody on the Gunther train.
The Ring General. I really, really, really like his style of wrestling, and I think that it's refreshing. I almost wish he was in AEW just so I could see him go in a match with no restrictions.
Chris, just as a funny side note, how much do you think that, like, how awesome would it be just to be Gunther's ring announcer and have to wrestle, like, maybe once every 3 weeks just to say, Ring General, and get paid, like, probably $250,000 a year? Do you think that would be an awesome job for us?
Yeah, I'd do it.
I think we'd all do it.
$250,000. You're delirious.
Well, probably with Imperium, like, if there's sales with merchandise and all the stuff, like, he's probably making 6 figures, Josh. Let's be for real here.
You're talking about the other member of Imperium. Sorry, I thought you were talking about an announcer.
No.
Yes.
And can he ever catch that jacket?
Ludwig Kaiser. But he can catch a jacket. He does a great job with catching the jacket. There's a YouTube video with it too. Chris, so you know what? Josh was kind of hinting at it. He's talked about kind of his title reign and even going back to the pre-Attitude Era. Josh mentioned Mr. Perfect. We've seen Razor Ramon with the title. We've seen Shawn Michaels carry it. We've seen a lot of like The Rock, Triple H. Like there's a lot of really big names that carry it. And I think like I kind of with Josh, I have him in the top 5 or 10 for a title reign right now, and he keeps going up each week when I see these performances that he has. So Josh mentioned that he thinks he's main event. Do you think he's main event? And, this title reign's going to eventually end at some point, so who do you think's going to beat him for that title if it's not Matt Riddle?
Well, today I was reading that there are internal talks about making him the longest reigning IC champ ever. Just to go into it. I think he's the epitome of an IC champ. He's a working champ. He's wrestling a lot. I loved what they did with him in the Royal Rumble. They made him look so strong, and yeah, he's up there. He's up there in title reigns for sure. I mean, you have your Bret Harts. I mean, I'd definitely put him in a top 5 for the title reigns. Who's gonna beat him? If it's anytime soon, I'd have to go with my boy LA Knight. Yeah, I think he's just since his debut on the. I'm coming back to the LA Knight character. You can watch the videos of the reaction he got to even just to London, to the massive reaction he got. I think he's red hot. He gave the rub. He was the last guy until Damian Priest grabbed the briefcase. So, I mean, I think if the time comes and if LA Knight's still hot and he's still there, I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him take it. I mean, the guy can. He's probably the best on the mic right now, other than MJF, if you ask me.
I think one of the interesting things when you kind of think of LA Knight, and you know what, we've talked a lot about his work and how we honestly probably believe that he's one of the biggest finds for WWE right now, especially with what he's been doing. But it's been how his popularity has increased more and more, with more of kind of his personal story coming out, like being 40 years old and, you know, never giving up on his dream, and, you know, taking kind of these characters but still trying to run with them, like, you know, being in the system, getting released, going out on the indies, going to Impact, and really kind of making a big difference, and just kind of, you know, his outright love for professional wrestling really shows through in a lot of his work. I personally kind of side with you. I think, like, if there's anybody that's going to take the title off him, I think it probably should be him. And you know what? You're kind of going to give him a rub for doing it too. And you know what? Like, my expectation, I wouldn't expect a year-long title reign from LA Knight, but I think at the same point, what you might be running in is pushing both those guys together into that main event status. So, one of the things we don't really see in WWE anymore are these rivalries, right? And I think that could be one of the best storylines or best rivalries that we'd see in a long time. I mean, you know, you kind of would go through, and I think there's, you know, some pretty good ones that could be out there. Like, I mean, even with, you know, kind of with the women's match, like Bianca and Charlotte, that could be a really good rivalry moving forward. And I just think when you have them, it just creates so much more on the line. Like, I mean, when there's personal stuff that goes on, kind of like when you talk about Rock and Cena, and then the story there, obviously Rock was basically writing some notes on his arm, and then Cena calls it out, and then basically Rock was absolutely mortified and wanted to fucking really punch him in the face, and those things just really kind of snowball into effect and create this kind of this real life atmosphere, right? So be nice to see what they can do with them. You have somebody that's basically a ring technician just against, you know, it's basically the gentlemanly kind of, in a way, but aggressive European against a loudmouth American. And I think it's just something that really kind of stands out in today's society, which would be really kind of cool to see. So it'd be really interesting. But I'm with Chris. I do think LA Knight is due for a title and due for a good run. And what that title is and when that run happens is really up to WWE, right?
And fun fact, LA Knight, even when he wasn't working for WWE, apparently he does almost all the movesets for the games.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what is actually one of the other funny stories with him. If you ever watched the Triple H workout video that he actually did for WWE, that he did at the Performance Center, actually LA Knight was actually on the right hand side, and in that workout video, and Chris, he throws out a yeah. It's in the video. No bullshit. It's actually in the video. So pretty interesting when he goes through. So dummy, yeah, we're high on LA Knight.
Hey, Chris, I hate to burst your bubble, but Gunther is going to be the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion before LA Knight beats him, because I think that's just the way that they're billing it. This is WWE continues to do this bullshit where they have the longest reigning for everybody, and it's just I think that's where they're heading with Gunther.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned if LA Knight's still red hot and if he's still around after that comes through, but. Yeah, that could put a wrench in putting a belt on him if all of a sudden he has nothing for him and he kind of wanes in fan reaction.
Yeah, I think it's also tough when you go through it, but it'll be interesting to see how it happens. I think you kind of have to have a slow build for this match, and maybe it's not SummerSlam. Maybe it's I don't know how long he has to go to be the longest IC title reign, but I think at the end of the day, I think he's going to drop it not at a small pay per view. He's going to drop it at a big one. It's going to be one of the big four, right? So that's just the reality of it. Now,
I looked it up. He's at 315 days currently, and I believe Honky Tonk Man is at 453 days. So he's
yeah, and I think they're trying. I think they're trying to get rid of that too. I think they're trying to get
He's
rid.
got to have it.
Sorry, go ahead.
More than that because he was the champion of June last year, so he's over. It's got to be over 365 at this point.
Yeah, maybe you're right. I just searched it quickly, but he was 5th the last time.
All right, we'll get there.
Longest just.
It was Honky Tonk Man's 453.
Oh, right.
The Honky Tonk.
On June 2nd, it was 356 days. So, okay, so we're like at 377 days right now.
Whoa, this isn't a math podcast, Josh.
I did it in my head. You do 21 plus 56.
It's mental math, Christopher. So bringing us to our last WWE topic, and we've talked about some divisions in the WWE for the women's division, and we talked about the lack of female presence, and and just kind of using the same people, but obviously there's a bit of staleness in the women's division. People are kind of getting injured. We almost saw Bayley have a really bad injury where they threw up the X. Looks like she's going to try to work through it, or maybe kind of be taken off house shows for a bit. But injuries aren't going to help the cause of that stale nature that's kind of going on with the women. We're seeing the same matches. It's stuff that we've talked about already on the podcast. Now, I kind of have a hypothetical question for this one. Now, if you could take any single women's wrestler on planet Earth right now, or maybe I'll even give you two. We can talk one or two if you want. Do you kind of go in house and go to NXT? Do you go to AEW? Who do you take, and why? Chris, who would you take to really kind of get rid of that staleness and really bring some excitement to the women's division? One or two female wrestlers. Who would you bring in from any promotion?
I'd have to go to AEW. Hayter. I think Hayter would help out a lot. I'm just going to throw it in there, but if they really wanted to get people talking, they could bring Tessa Blanchard in, but I don't see that happening.
For many reasons.
But I would bring... Yeah, and I'd probably bring back Ruby Soho. I'd probably bring her back, and I'd bring Hayter in. Those are the two I'd bring in to kind of get away from that staleness. Because yeah, you're right. We're seeing the same thing over and over. We're seeing random tag teams being made. Yeah, I think Jamie Hayter's style would definitely give a kick up. I'd love to see her against Asuka or Charlotte Flair. Yeah, and Ruby Soho's just solid. She's solid all around. Probably a huge help with people in the back, just because, especially in WWE, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, but they do tend to go more for looks than in-ring ability. So, they do get lucky with people like Charlotte Flair, who's got both, but not everybody has both. And Ruby Soho can, if she's in a match, she could carry somebody who's a little greener. So those are the two that I would pick to come in.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you picked Ruby Soho because for the longest time she was already there, right? And I think she was a bit of a fresh of breath there because she kind of did the Riot Squad and it just kind of. What happened after that was kind of sad. Ruby Soho left. I think who was the other girl that was in there? Was it the girl that's with the Viking Raiders? Was it Sarah, whatever her name is? Yeah, her, and then obviously Liv. And I thought it was kind of really interesting to see how it would go and to kind of go through it and like that stable was actually kind of a fun stable to watch when we went through it. But, obviously it didn't work out for Ruby Soho in WWE, and that's why she jumped ship. So I'm just kind of shocked that you brought her into it. But I would agree, her work's pretty good, and she can do a lot of good things. Josh, who would you bring in? Who's two people that you would bring in to really kind of bring some excitement to the group and bring it up?
Yeah, I'm not... I don't really know. There's not a lot of women wrestlers that I'm excited about currently that would go over to WWE. I could see, Chris Statlander would do really well there. I think that they definitely need to have some more not larger women, but women who are more physically capable. I agree with Chris as well that you seem to be booking looks over ability a lot of the times. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. It's just that if you want to watch a good solid match, you want to see people who are more well trained and more seasoned. I just don't think the WWE is suited for those type of wrestlers. They seem to be pushing women not based on their in-ring ability a lot of the times, and it's unfortunate. But the other person who I'd bring would be Nyla Rose. I think that she would light that up, and I think that that would also bring that kind of to the spotlight. I really do think that she could compete well with that group of women, and it would bring a different dynamic. You could book her as a monster, and then you could put over some of your big baby faces over her with good wins, and then also have those strong style matches with some of those heavy hitting women like like an Asuka, like a Charlotte, like the two champions currently. So and Rhea Ripley, sorry, I don't know why I couldn't get her name into my head. I love Rhea Ripley.
It's hard that they just settle with the women always having smoke break matches.
Yeah, it's really hard, and you know what? Like, it's nothing against the women in the ring. It's not really that. It's just it does two things. One, it's the same storyline over and over, and two, it's just hard to be believable when you're not hitting somebody. And it's not to say that it's the physicality, but there has to be some sort of like really athletic ability. And you look at it, like the people that are in the top, like Bianca Belair was, if she didn't do WWE, she probably would have been in the CrossFit Games like this weekend or whatever. I think the CrossFit Games are going on right now. I think they're in event 9, and like she had like a 250-pound snatch under the age of 20. Like for those that know, a 250-pound snatch, like that's fucking crazy. But you look at a lot of things, and I mean, WWE has some really great talent in NXT. So I'm going to kind of break this up into two kind of different roles here, which is who I'd bring in from outside, and then who should come up from NXT right now with their performances. So my first one, is going with the NJPW Strong Champion, which is Julia, who just beat like Willow Nightingale. Julia's basically won everything in Stardom and has probably the most unique look to a female wrestler since probably like maybe Sasha Banks. Extremely unique, like Italian Japanese heritage, like got tons of braids, like colorful personality, like great wrestler. Had a great match with Willow for the Strong Championship. And I just think that she could really kind of do some different things, like trained in London. She's world trained. She can probably wrestle any type of style that you want. So you want hard hitting? Done. You want flying? It's done. Like, she's learned every single style possible. So she's like, when you look at kind of the PWI and you look at the numbers, like she's always in the top 50, but I don't think you need somebody at number 1, 2, 3, or 5 to bring in that's going to be like an immediate game changer. I just think you need something that's going to take the eyes off the top stars, but is going to be better than those bottom stars that we're struggling to watch, right? I think if you can get somebody in the middle, you can really do a build that's going to be somebody that could take over a promotion. So she would be my first one going into it. And you know what? There's a lot of people kind of looking at kind of like some of the stuff at Impact. Like, I mean, you're looking at with AEW, you could talk about Jade Cargill because she has just an amazing physique, extremely green in the ring. That's the only knock on Jade. And you know what? I think in a lot of cases, one of the reasons she's been off television so much is to try to work on that greenness, right? I think that's definitely a scenario that's actually happening. My personal favorite that I would like to bring over would be from AEW, and I'd love to see Thunder Rosa come over to WWE. I think it would be absolutely amazing to see with the Latino community. I'd kick Zelina Vega out of basically the LWO, and I'd put Thunder Rosa in there because she is like the epitome of Latino World Order, and she can fight, and she's like just a great wrestler in general. If she can get along with the people in the back, she has all the abilities to stick with a company forever because one, I mean, she was doing announcing for Forbidden Door 2 for the Spanish commentary. She can do that. She can announce. She's good looking. She has a good looking face. She does like a kind of the Day of the Dead makeup, or you know, that makeup, and I think it really kind of mixes in with that theme of the LWO. And I think she just her fighting skills would be unbelievable. I think she'd be able to have good matches with any of the people in the top card and elevate some of the bottom ones. Now, I don't know how much you guys watch NXT. I know that people have been in and out. We talked about this last week. The two people I would really want to bring up from NXT now would be Tiff Stratton, who's the NXT champion. Fantastic on the mic. Paris Hilton theme would do a really good job in livening up. And maybe you could even put her with Chelsea Green and with Sonya Deville to kind of create like a really cool stable. And then the last one is Taya Hale from basically Chase University. Probably one of the best actresses on the thing. Itzia saw her for the first time. My partner Itzia does not watch wrestling, and she said, "Who's the muskrat from Ice Age that's on the TV right now?" And it was basically Tia Hill like doing some stupid Kimura or whatever. So I think that would actually be a really good pickup because she would definitely kind of bring that excitement, that energy that the women's division sorely needs. So for WWE, anything we want to add here, boys?
You know who else I wouldn't mind seeing there? I wouldn't mind seeing them bring back Serena Deeb.
I would agree. Serena Deeb's got great moves, and even like another one. I know, Chris, you're not high on Athena. I think Athena steps in pretty well and can kind of fill the void. I don't know if she would be kind of that world beater, but she would be able to kind of fight those top stars and still have a good match with them, right? And she has a great finishing move, which is great for the fans.
You know who I say beats Gunther? Off board, it's Omos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're damn right.
Yeah, you bring in the Nigeria Wunderkind, and we'll destroy. I don't know why Nigeria would have a German Wunderkind name, but I've tried to put things together really fast in my head, and it doesn't work. But now, yeah, we all miss Omos, right, Josh? I totally hear you. But now we're going to move on to some AEW topics, and we're going to start with a Meltzer-rated 5.25-star match that was on live TV for free on cable television. We're going to talk about the Collision Tag Team match between F the Revival, or Fuck the Revival, FTW versus Bullet Club, 2 out of 3 falls for the tag titles. Bullet Club consisting of not the Guns, but consisting of basically Switchblade Jay White and Juice Robinson. So, Josh, I know that you watched the match. We talked about it a little bit. Honestly, is it the best ever tag match on cable TV that we've ever seen?
Yeah, I would have to say so. I mean, it was an hour, so we got a lot of in-ring action that you wouldn't normally see. You know, props go out to the guys. Apparently, they had a short time to prepare for this match, and although they might not have called the match in the ring, they did do a lot of things on the fly. There was one spot that I wasn't really keen on with the medical when they came in, but I think that it was a really, really good example of, or it wasn't a good example, it was the standard for what a tag match should be, and what tag teams should be. And I think they played off each other very well. The double sharpshooter, it was kind of semi-predictable, but it was very good, and I was glad it wasn't the finisher. I was happy to see that it was just a single sharpshooter that ended. Thought it was a fantastic match, and could have maybe been a 5.5. I think it was definitely the best tag match they've shown for free. But AEW continues to put on quality programming during the week. This is exactly what I was talking about last week. For them to make Collision successful, they need to have matches that are hitting those 4+ stars on a regular basis, because that's that holy shit. Did you see Collision? You just missed the best tag team match on free television. How could you do that? It being on a Saturday, I think that this is another reason for you to watch Collision. And I think that, stay tuned, because Collision's going to keep on putting out bangers, because AEW loves to put out those matches.
Chris, I'm going to hold off on you for a second. I'm going to ask Josh one more question, because I'm going to go off the script with you. And I know that thrills you, but that's what's going to happen. Josh, my next question would be, do you think that the Guns would have had the same type of match if it wasn't Jay White and Juice Robinson? Or do you think that being Bullet Club and having Jay and Juice and being the more experienced team members really led to the high star rating for this match? Do you think the Guns could have done a 5.25 doing it with FTR for an hour?
I think that the Guns could have had potentially the same quality match. I think that they actually have a little bit more comedy in their matches, so that maybe that would have taken away from that type of quality match. I think that Jay White and Juice Robinson were exactly what that match needed. They had that energy. I just think that the Guns are a little bit too green to have that type of match, and I think that there would just be too many slight botches. Not botches that you would say like that's a botch, but you can see in those matches that they have often that there's like some hesitancy, or there's something where there's not the same type of flow. And this match had that type of flow where, you know, the transitions between the moves were fantastic, and the slow spots were exactly what they needed to be, and then the hard hitting aspect was there as well.
Awesome. Chris, now are you excited for your question?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Was this match on cable TV better than FTR versus Do It Yourself with Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano, best 2 out of 3 falls? What's a better match? They're both bangers. Do you rate one over the other? Do you rate them the same? Or do you rate that match that we saw in Collision worse than the FTR and DIY? I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but it was a question that popped in my head that it has to be answered.
I liked the Bullet Club Gold match. I would put it over that. I mean, even though I loved NXT back then, the product with AEW is so much. It seems like the wrestlers are so much freer to do the moves they want. Like, the producers aren't literally listening to Tony Khan to make the match, and the papers aren't getting ripped up the day of, and McMahon's changing it. So I think, given that freeness, if they were in WWE and they had short notice and they had to be put together, it probably would have been terrible. Like, it probably would have been awful. But these guys get together. They're all professionals. They're all really good wrestlers. Like, even Juice Robinson, where he's come from being CJ Parker in NXT with the dreads. Like, he's come a long way. He made a career for himself in Japan. Now he's back in America, and it was a great match. It was a really good 2 out of 3 falls match. It's definitely the best cable TV tag match we've ever seen.
Great. I think, yeah, it's interesting to see when you kind of go back over some of those old matches and you try to compare them. And I think that's what people want to do. They try to want to kind of rank these matches. I have to agree. I think I'm trying to think of all the times, even in the Attitude Era, where there's the tag matches, and even with main event stars, where it was like Undertaker and Kane versus like Big Show and Chris Jericho, or Stone Cold and The Rock. Like, they used to have a lot of those in Attitude Era that would be like on a SmackDown on a Friday night, let's say. But those matches, I think you're right. They're overproduced, right? And they're also for a smaller amount of time. Like, I think if you let FTR and Ciampa and Gargano go for an hour, I think it's a different story. Like, and if it was like on the Indies, that might be the match of the year, right? So, and it could happen either way. I'm not sure. I agree with you, Josh, on the Guns. I'm not sure comedically. I think they have more of a comedic feel. I don't think they could have put up the 5 1/4 just based on experience. I think they would have had a good match with FTR, but I don't know. I don't have the Guns actually gone an hour in a match. Like, that's a tough thing to do too. Like, I mean, if you've never done it before, right? So that's the only thing that I think holds them back. It's definitely not their skill. I think that in the next 5 or 10 years, they're going to be a very, very good tag team. They seem very dedicated to what they're doing, but I loved Jay and Juice getting the spot, especially for, not tagging as much. Like, they're not really a full tag team, and they did a great job filling in those spots with one of the best in the world. Now, bring us to the big reason on Wednesday night that we all tuned in. Christmas comes early. 2 rings, 2 cages, 10 guys, tornado tag, killing each other, blood and guts. Question is for you, Chris. Watching Blood and Guts from last year, and some different things, and we saw some really big spots going through. Did this match meet or exceed your expectations, or did it not live up to the fame of it of being a Blood and Guts match?
Blood and Guts always delivers. It always delivers, and that's one thing I love AEW for. If they put together that stadium brawl, or anytime they put together like a gimmicky match, other than obviously Moxley and Omega's little explosion there, or lack thereof, but usually when they put on a gimmicky match, they make it the focus of the show. Like, you have to. You can't just skimp on a gimmick match. You have to do it. And just the talent they had in the ring, you can't go wrong. And again, like I'm saying, they have more freedom to do kind of what they want in the ring. And I heard after they went off the air, Omega told him he respected everybody, and also said, I'll shorten my career if you guys want me to keep going. So, I mean, to him, it was a success, and to me, it was a success. We were still talking about it the next day. We were saying we were still buzzing about it. So, especially to get that caliber of a match on live TV, like just to tune in, fantastic. Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, it's like it's basically a pay-per-view level match when you're looking at it. BCC Golden Elite. You got Pac added in as the fifth man. You got Kota Ibushi coming in. You know, Kota I don't think looked as great as he have in the past, but let's face it, the guy hasn't wrestled in probably over a year and had a lot of injuries. And like we discussed last week, he's in his 40s, right? So like I cut him a little bit of a break, but he still did a lot of great stuff in that match that was typical Kota Ibushi style. Now, Josh, I know that we talked last week about you know that behind closed door meetings about having production, about violence and all this stuff. The first thing that happens in the match is we see a fork and then we see broken glass going in the ring. What were your thoughts? Do you think that they even followed that stuff? Because obviously this would have had to been clear with the producer, correct?
Oh my goodness. You know what? I almost think that again, AEW is like feeding news because like as soon as the banned list comes out, they start talking about how it's not really a set of rules, and sure some people have heard about it, and then they put together a match like Blood and Guts, and clearly on the banned list is buckle bomb. They did a buckle bomb. The intentional bleeding. Okay, no intentional bleeding. Of course they're gonna get it approved for Blood and Guts, but I almost think that it was a nod to this, like, hey, you think you know us, and we're gonna continue to surprise you. And it almost is like it's kind of annoying that this stuff like this happens, because it seems like the news is becoming part of the story, and they're giving a nod to the news, and it's like, yeah, okay, we know that kayfabe isn't a thing anymore, but like, is this something that you planted, or is this actually just a coincidence? But I think that like it's a little bit more than that. And I really enjoyed the match. I think it was great. I agree with you when we were talking, when they brought the fork out, why is nobody bleeding yet? Like, they should have all been in the corner blading after they got stabbed in the head. I also agree that Kota Ibushi looked a little bit sloppy, but I think he did well, and, a good thing that he was last. I liked how they left the ending, and it protected the BCC because, the two members quit. And I do kind of wish they'd stop using Wheeler Yuta as the whipping boy for BCC, in the sense that he's always taking the losses. But I guess that's his role currently. So
I think that's part of the storytelling. I don't think they really had a choice, right? You're not going to have... I think that the Moxley kind of calling it off with the handcuffs is trying to save Wheeler, was to try and save that, because when you look at the other three people that were in the match, you couldn't do it to them. You can't give Pin the loss on Takeshita because he's with Don Callis, which I thought... Don Callis pulling him out was probably one of the best pieces of storytelling. We're like, well, he's not going to get in there and get killed. This guy's the only guy I have in my family. He's my meal ticket. I'm yanking him. Like, that was pretty much it. Like, great piece of storytelling there. And then, obviously, you're setting up Pac and Costignoli for... we're filming the podcast on a Friday, and tonight's Death by Dishonor. And that's the main event for tonight's Death by Dishonor, which is part of the storyline. So it had to be either Moxley or Yuta with the storyline. But I agree. I don't think he should be the whipping boy anymore. He's got a... he had the Pure Championship. He's having a little bit of a rough go right now. But, you know what? He'll be back to it. And... you know what? I honestly think that eventually you're going to have a really good feud with Death Triangle going after the BCC. And I think that's going to create some matches that, again, pay-per-view caliber matches on a Wednesday night, pay-per-view caliber matches on a Friday night Rampage that we might actually see it, right? So it's pretty insane. But yeah, Blood and Guts, I agree. Like, I mean, the only thing that was missing than the fork was just Nick Gage's pizza cutter, like, and having the Domino's commercial that was right up there. Like, that would have just, like, topped it off for me. And I was telling you guys on the podcast all the way through, like, when we were talking about it 2 days before, I'm like, fuck, I love Blood and Guts. Christmas has come early, and we're going to get some presents on Wednesday night. So I was slated to work on Wednesday night. I said, fuck it, I'm going out Thursday because I'm not missing anything of the show. Like, I'm not missing it all. And that's what I did. So, but great programming. Again, like we just said, I said it for the third time. Pay-per-view style matches on a Wednesday night on free cable. beautiful. And, something has to be said about the caliber of wrestling and the caliber of the wrestlers themselves and the guts that they have, because those matches do take a toll on you. And to not put it on a PPV and just to give it to the fans, because they're giving everything that they can. And I think that's one of the reasons why AEW fans are so endearing towards those wrestlers and love them so much, because they give everything and those fans respect it. Where I think for some of the WWE fans, because of the production that we talked about, they don't necessarily care as much about the body of work. And I could be wrong on that, but I don't think like you're going to see anybody go through a cage like Mick Foley. Mick Foley's like so loved for what he's given up in his body, and there's not anybody that's really doing that in WWE anymore, right? You might have the odd jump off the cage, but you don't have what we see in AEW with what they give up. So, and that's really what kind of gets you over too, right? Now,
I agree. I think that this is the first one that no major injuries happened.
Yeah, it's great. It's well-deserved, too. They've had some bad luck, and it's good to see that everybody came out unscathed. Now, we're going to switch over to Collision a little bit. We just talked about Dynamite, but Collision's kind of interesting because apparently through the rumor mill, we like talking about CM Punk, we like talking about rumors, we like reading what we see on some of the dirt sheets. But apparently CM Punk led a roster meeting where he said that basically Collision needs to be different than Dynamite and doesn't have to do the same thing that Dynamite does to be successful, and that they should do something completely different. Now, my big question when it comes to Josh is basically the same question I just kind of stated, which is, does Collision need to be different from Dynamite? But does it have to be different when Dynamite is clearly the best wrestling show on a weekly basis for professional wrestling today? What would they do? Do they have to be different? And what would they do to try to match the success that Dynamite's having?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't really understand how you can be different. I wouldn't want to be different than Dynamite for the quality of wrestling. Now, so if they're talking about how the storylines are going, I could see that maybe. But I really just don't think that they have to be different as in they set themselves apart. But I think if anything, they should strive to be better than Dynamite, which would be really difficult because Dynamite is an amazing show. But I think that, if Collision, maybe the tag division is more focused on Collision, and that's where you have your big tag matches, and you have like a strong tag team like FTR headlining on a regular basis, and then putting on these quality matches. Or maybe, you have it more formatted where you have like a specialty matches, or kind of like the best 2 out of 3, or you have like the dog collar matches. And again, like you said, AEW is just putting on pay-per-view level matches. Like, I don't even think you need to have a pay-per-view anymore, like as much as WWE is, because WWE's pay-per-views don't even put on the same quality of matches as a quarter of any of AEW matches. It's just, if you want to watch wrestling, AEW is where it is. You might as well skip it WWE until you go to the pay-per-views, because nothing happens in the regular.
We kind of can't do that because we have to do the podcast. I'm just teasing, but I know what you're saying. You're right, and pure wrestling is great, right? So when you're looking at pure wrestling, a lot of people in WWE aren't going to watch ROH either, right? And ROH, we've fucking love ROH as well, just because it does have different wrestlers that you've never seen. It has different people. It exposes you and opens you up to more different rules too. Obviously you have the Code of Honor. You have their version of a no DQ match is called, Fight Without Dishonor. Ring of Honor was created with a code of conduct, and people forget that if you haven't watched on a regular basis, right? And they have a pure title, which has its own set of rules, and it's just kind of crazy, but I completely agree with you, Josh. When you're looking at that, it's just the volume and the quality of wrestling on AEW right now is just so far better than the WWE, just because you said it earlier. It's the freedom to be able to make mistakes. And as an art form, and I'm sure Chris would agree, you're going to make mistakes. And it's okay to make those mistakes. People say, people in WWE say, they botched it. Well, who gives a fuck if they botched it? Shit happens. Have you ever wrestled in front of 15,000 people? Shit happens. If I go on stage and sing karaoke, if I go on stage and sing karaoke tonight, I'm gonna be off key. That's just part of it. I already know that. Shit happens. That's part of the job.
We've only wrestled in front of about a total of 8 people.
which is fine. But I mean, they were a very critiqued 8 people. So
Oh, yeah.
Now, my question for you, Chris, when we bring it back to this Collision and Dynamite debate, before we get ready for Josh to slice some salami, as we like to say, do you think that Collision is going to be behind Dynamite for PLE content or PPV content? Because when you look at the roster in Dynamite, it seems like there's like you have the Bucks, you have Omega, like you have all these established stars in AEW, and when you kind of look at Collision, you like it's not a knock, but you have FTR, you have CM Punk, you have Miro, and you have some other people that are on there. Do you think that they're going to have an impact on the storylines for those PLEs with the stuff that they do on just being single-handedly on Collision? And if that was the case, what would you do to kind of add them into the mix? Because it can't just be CM Punk and FTR all the time, right?
I mean, I guess you could do like a show versus show, like similar to like Battle of the Belts, and you could, or not Forbidden Door, but I guess their version of an in-house Forbidden Door. I mean, like, is there, if it's a work, I get it, and if they're building up something, but to make that show completely different and not build storylines, but build storylines for a different cast of characters that's smaller and that's obviously all centered around CM Punk. I think it'll take away, because I mean, again, they don't have enough TV programming for the talent they have, so it is good that they have their own show, but how do you integrate both of them with shows? How do you integrate titles? Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm interested to see how it works out. Right now, should it be its own show? Especially what you're saying with PLE is you just have Punk show up on a PLE and
like we really haven't seen, like, I mean, I'm a big fan of Miro. I've always been a big fan of Miro when he was Rusev in WWE. Like, I feel like we haven't even seen him. And I just keep hearing this Redeemer thing where he's talking to God, and I want to see him fucking kill some people. That's what I want to see. Like, that's why I'm watching on a Saturday night. If not, I'll just go watch boxing, or I'll go watch those celebrities that box on DAZN nowadays just to see them kill each other. Like, that's what I want to see. I want to see people get hurt, is what I want to see. And Miro does that.
Yeah.
His slap fights. That's too much for me, man. But I get you.
And I love Miro's Redeemer character. I think he should be up there. He should be up challenging for a title. He should be holding him. Like, he's big and he looks good, and all of his moves, even when he just kicks the back to get the arms up, like, it looks devastating. They need to give this guy some, like, a huge piece of rope and just let him run with it.
Yeah, I agree. And you just got to kind of let him go. And I think, like, you know what? I think Collision's a great spot for the TNT title. I think, you know what? For some of these wrestlers that have kind of fallen beside the wayside, I think Scorpio Sky would be a great fit on Collision to really try to bring him up. I'm not sold on him being main event level talent. He's got great in-ring ability. I'm not sold on it. I just find him kind of boring a little bit. That's just me. But you know what? I really hope he proves me wrong, because if he can deliver a 5-star match, then good for him. But guys like Ethan Page, but guys like that, but you have to have the meat around it, right? So, I mean, it's really like, what are you going to have? Like, can't have the same storyline of CM Punk FTR versus Bullet Club. Like, we can't do that for 6 months. We really can't, because those other storylines on the lower level of the card are going to be really affected. So, I'm under the impression that I think that they're not going to have a lot of PLE time. I think certain matches will get on, but I think what with this is that we also know it's only been around for 5 weeks now. 5 or 6 weeks. It's a work in progress, and it'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward. But, guys, with that being said, Josh, that's my meat slicer going off. What the hell is gonna slice your salami this week?
All right, this is one that's ingrained in WWE culture. It's been around since the Attitude Era. We can thank Stone Cold for the creation of this.
What?
The what?
What?
Yes, exactly. I'm glad it doesn't happen in AEW. I'm glad it doesn't carry over. Nothing ruins a good promo like the what. And I think it just goes to show you that the WWE fans are some of the lowest level, least intelligent, as MJF might say, they are the pores. It is one of the things that takes the steam most out of a promo, and I just think that enough is enough. You need to grow up. It's not 1998 anymore. It's time.
Spoken from a
And you
true
know what?
adult.
That is what slices my salami. It gets me so steamed that I barely cut my promo well there.
The one thing I will say is that Stephen Austin really did it well. Like, even if Chris, if you just say what after everything I say, it's just like, I'm going to kick some ass.
What?
And then I'm going to drink some beer.
What?
Cold beer.
What?
With my right hand. What? I'm going to chug it. What? I said I'm going to chug it. What? Chug it.
He's definitely
fuck.
had the biggest impact in wrestling, in TV, and wrestling on TV. Stone Cold Steve Austin's his impact has been long lasting, and it'll probably last forever. Because
for absolutely sure. And I could just picture him. I can just picture him saying, Josh, like at one point, he's like, they're going to what me? I'm going to fucking fuck up these marks just by fucking them up by doing that the whole time. These marks. But anyways, with that being said, guys, we got through number 9, and we're going to be on a decade of shows whenever that happens. We're going to discuss, we may be on a slight hiatus next week, but we're going to try and work through it. We'll see what happens. But no guarantees. But just know as fans, we love you. Everything's great. We got through slices. Anything, Chris? Anything for you? Any receipts you want to give out? Or are we waiting on that?
Yeah, we're gonna hold off on that, I think.
Okay, that's good.
But no, I don't, and I didn't have any as well, so that's probably good.
Josh was saying it's Matt Riddle and the Gunther fight, where basically those were just people giving receipts back and forth. But anyways, so get ready, guys. Like, if you're a fan of the show and you listen to us, like the person from the United States, we love you. Just want to let you know that you're always the first person that views our stuff, and we just want to know. We hope you're liking the show out there, because, you know, and for anybody that's on YouTube that follows us, you guys are all included in that. We love our fans. We'd love to hear from you. So. With that being said, we have a new segment that's going to be coming out, but stay tuned for that in the coming weeks. But for everybody that's going through, like I said at the beginning of the show, you can hit us up at therubwrestling@outlook.com. I don't think I put the email at the very beginning, but if you have any questions, you can reach us there. If you need to find us, you can find us on Google, you can find us on Apple, you can find us on Spotify, you can find us on YouTube, you can find us basically any place you can find a goddamn podcast. So with that, again, I'm going to say it again to all of our fans. We love you. Josh and Chris love you. You know, you're seen, you're heard. We're big fans. But wherever you are in the world tonight, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. We all bid you adieu. Bang!